bullying sentiment. Drake Keeler of IX Basketball made an X post that read, Curt Miller said he's already received more calls about potential trades for the #1 pick in the upcoming draft than he did in the lead up to the 2025 draft. So teams...
Get this. The phones are already ringing off the hook in Dallas. We're talking multiple teams, and they're not just calling about some random draft pick. No, they are calling about the #1 overall pick in the 2026 WNBA draft. The Dallas Wings GM, Curt Miller, just dropped a bombshell, revealing he's gotten more trade inquiries for this top spot than he did for the last 2 drafts combined. And when he laid out the reason, he dropped one name, Caitlin Clark. That single detail tells you everything about how a truly franchise-altering superstar completely changes the game when it comes to draft assets.
There was not going to be a trade. Paige was not going to be traded, but it will be interesting, and it makes our job fun to listen to those calls that come in for the #1 pick, and we'll do what's best for our franchise. So teams are calling about the #1 pick more so this year than in the past, because when the Indiana Fever got the #1 pick, there was no point in you calling the Indiana Fever. They were never trading away the #1 pick, which was Caitlin Clark. That pick.
Listen to what Miller actually laid out. Back in 2024, when the Indiana Fever held the #1 selection, nobody even bothered to call. I mean, why would they? It was a known fact Caitlin Clark was going first, and there was absolutely zero chance in hell Indiana was going to trade away that pick. It was the same exact story in 2025. When Dallas had the top spot, Paige Bueckers was the clear-cut, obvious choice, and Miller's phone was dead silent. But this year is completely different. Right now, teams are circling like sharks because this draft class doesn't have that one single undeniable generational talent at the top. And it's that uncertainty that is creating a massive opportunity. The lottery results just dropped on November 23rd, handing Dallas their second straight #1 pick. They've got options. Choosing between Azzi Fudd from UConn, USC's Kiki Iriafen, Lauren Betts from UCLA, Notre Dame's Olivia Miles, and a bunch of other really talented prospects. But this is what sets this draft apart from the last 2 years.
Let's take a look at this here. See, even in this mock draft, so there's a mock draft here on ESPN, right? And even in this mock draft, they have the Dallas Wings taking Azzi Fudd with the #1 overall pick. Now, I do like Azzi Fudd. She has gotten better to me. I didn't know. She definitely started shooting the ball. I saw her shoot the ball off the dribble a little bit better. But for the most part, she's a catch and shoot, knockdown shoot.
So, the early ESPN mock draft has Dallas picking Azzi Fudd first overall. And on paper, it makes a ton of sense. She's Paige Bueckers' former teammate and girlfriend from their time at UConn. And putting them back together in Dallas would create instant chemistry and, let's be honest, sell a boatload of tickets. Fudd's shooting has gotten way better this season, and she's showing she can create more off the dribble, even if she is still mostly a catch-and-shoot threat. But then Minnesota gets the second pick, and they're in a prime position to draft Kiki Iriafen. Just think about that roster for a minute. They've already got a core with Nafisa Collier, Alana Smith, Courtney Williams, Kayla McBride, and Bridget Carlton, which is one of the most complete in the league. Now you add a versatile forward like Iriafen, who can score from anywhere on the court. That's not just a team making the playoffs. That team immediately becomes a legitimate title contender. Then Seattle is picking third, and Olivia Miles is the perfect choice for them. Imagine pairing her in the backcourt with Jewel Lloyd. All of a sudden, the Storm have their point guard for the future playing right alongside one of the best scorers in the league. That is a foundation you can build a dynasty around for the next 10 years.
But I'm not like super sold on Azzi Fudd as the #1 pick, but Dallas Wings, it makes sense. Our fam would make the most sense to me. Lauren Betts would make some. I'm not a Lauren Betts guy either, by the way. So, but I get it if they do it. You want to get a big, I get it. Me personally, I will go our fam over Lauren Betts any day of the week. I personally like Flau'jae more than Azzi Fudd, but it is.
Washington grabs the 4th pick in this scenario, and the mock draft has them selecting Lauren Betts. Now here's where things get a little tricky. Betts is a 7-foot center who is an absolute force in the paint. But the big question is, does she fit next to Aaliyah Edwards, who Washington is already developing? Edwards is a physical player, she can score inside, and she showed some serious promise in her rookie year. Bringing in another traditional big could actually create some serious spacing problems on the floor instead of fixing them. After that, Chicago picks 5th, and the mock projects them taking Sonia Citron from Notre Dame. But here's the part that nobody is really talking about. What does any of this mean for Angel Reese? The relationship between Reese and the Sky organization completely fell apart after she made those public comments about the team. The second she said what she said, you could tell the front office was already mentally moving on. You just don't draft another young forward prospect if you still have plans to build your franchise around Reese. Something has to give there.
You have to take her, but I don't love Lauren Betts next to Kiki Area-Finn. And I like the other big they got. She wear the red hair sometime. Light-skinned chick with the tattoos. I just blanked on her name. My apologies. But she's nice. But I mean, if Lauren Betts is there at 6'7", I guess you got to take her. Flau'jae, see. Now, the Chicago Sky have to get rid of Angel Reese. You can't bring in Flau'jae Johnson and still have Angel Reese when we know they don't really click like that anymore.
Which brings us to this is where the real intrigue begins. Multiple teams are hitting up Dallas about trading for that #1 overall pick. So the big questions are, who is making these calls and what kind of packages are they putting on the table? Chicago seems like the most obvious team to make an aggressive move. They're sitting there with the 5th pick, and they also have Angel Reese, a player who just won Rookie of the Year in 2024, but whose connection with the team is completely broken. Could Chicago package Reese and their #5 pick to jump all the way up to #1? A deal like that would solve a bunch of problems all at once. Dallas would get a proven young star who just put up a double-double as a rookie, and they'd still get to pick in the top 5. Chicago would get a totally fresh start with whatever prospect they want, and could finally move on from a situation that has clearly become a major headache. The logic is there, the motivation is there for both teams, and it would perfectly explain why Curt Miller's phone is blowing up this year, after being silent the last 2. But hold on, there's another team that should be on the phone right now, Minnesota. The Lynx have the 2nd pick, which most people think means they'll get Kiki Area-Finn. But what if they actually want Azzi Fudd more? What if they believe Fudd's elite shooting is a better fit for their system than Area-Finn's all-around game? Minnesota could easily offer Dallas a package centered on future draft picks, maybe a veteran player, and the #2 selection. In that scenario, Dallas just moves down 1 spot, still lands an elite prospect in Area-Finn, and picks up extra assets for the future.
I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago are trying to trade Angel Reese for the #1 pick. The Chicago Sky are probably trying to pair Angel Reese and not this #5 pick, but Angel Reese and another pick for the #1 pick. Send Angel Reese to Dallas, get him another pick, or send Angel Reese at #5 to Dallas, and you get the #1 pick. Something, I don't know, but I think the Chicago Sky are definitely one of the teams putting in calls.
Now let's zoom out and talk about why this is a much bigger deal than just shuffling draft spots. The WNBA is about to go through a massive expansion phase. The league is bringing in new teams, and that means expansion drafts are on the horizon. When that happens, having a ton of high-value assets, whether it's top draft picks or young players on cheap rookie deals, gives you incredible protection and flexibility. For instance, if Dallas trades that #1 pick for Angel Reese and Chicago's 5th pick, they suddenly have 2 lottery-level talents locked under team control for several years. That's huge, not just for building a winning team, but for having pieces you can either protect or use as leverage when the expansion draft happens. The same idea applies if they trade down with Minnesota to stack up future picks. The comparison to Caitlin Clark that Miller made is what really pulls back the curtain on the strategy here. Clark was completely untradeable, not just because of her insane talent, but because of her cultural and financial impact. She literally changed the entire valuation of the Indiana franchise overnight. Paige Bueckers has that same kind of star power, maybe not at Clark's history-making level, but she's a certified superstar with a massive fan base.
To try to get rid of Angel Reese. Here it says Toronto Tempo getting Tania Latson, Cody McMahon, Gianna Neepkins. Okay, they don't have that girl from Maryland in here no more. Good, because she stinks. Kiki Rice, I'm not sold. But this is very, very interesting here, man. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this.
But here's the thing. None of the prospects in the 2026 draft have that kind of profile right now. Azzi Fudd is incredibly talented, and people know her name from UConn. But she isn't commanding the kind of attention that Caitlin Clark did. Kiki Iriefin is a phenomenal player, but she doesn't have that huge national media following yet. Lauren Betts dominates college opponents, but she hasn't really broken through into the mainstream conversation. Olivia Miles has all the potential in the world, but she's still working her way back from serious injury concerns. This lack of a single, obvious, transcendent superstar is the very this pick is so tradable. Miller isn't holding the golden ticket that Indiana had with Clark, or that Dallas itself had with Bueckers. What he's holding is a very valuable asset in a deep, relatively balanced draft class. And that's precisely when a smart GM starts picking up the phone and listening to what other teams have to offer. And check this out, the other factor no one is mentioning is that Dallas already has Paige Bueckers. They have their franchise cornerstone. She's locked in. Sure, adding Azzi Fudd would create a dynamic duo, but it's not essential for their long-term plan in the same way that getting that first foundational star was. Dallas has the luxury of being creative because they're now building around a proven superstar, not desperately searching for one. And what makes this whole thing so fascinating for the entire league is that the WNBA has never really seen this level of draft pick drama before. For years, teams at the top of the draft either took the no-brainer choice or made some minor move. But now, we're seeing front offices become way more sophisticated, much more willing to make huge, bold moves, and way more comfortable with the kind of asset management strategies the NBA has been using for decades. Curt Miller bringing up Caitlin Clark wasn't an accident. He was sending a signal to every other GM that he gets the difference between an untouchable, generational talent and a valuable, but movable asset. He's basically telling the entire league his phone is on and he's ready to talk. That's just smart business. Think about what went down with Clark in Indiana. The Fever went from being an afterthought to the hottest ticket in the league overnight. They sold out arenas, shattered viewership records. Clark's rookie year brought in more money and attention than anyone could have possibly imagined. That's the kind of impact that makes a pick completely off-limit. You're not just drafting a basketball player, you are fundamentally transforming the economics of your entire organization. Paige Bueckers is going to have a similar effect in Dallas, even if it's not quite as extreme. She's already driving ticket and merchandise sales before she's even played a single pro game. Dallas absolutely made the right decision to keep that pick and draft her, but this year is different. Azzi Fudd is a great player, maybe even a future all-star, but she's not about to restructure the league's financial landscape. The same goes for Iriefin, Betts, Miles, and the rest of this class. They are excellent players who will have long, productive careers, but none of them are bringing what Clark and Bueckers bring to the table. So Dallas has choices. They can draft Fudd, run with the UConn reunion storyline, with Bueckers, which has huge marketing appeal and could create an elite backcourt for years to come. Or they could trade the pick, get a haul of assets back, and speed up their rebuild in a completely different way. The Chicago trade scenario still makes the most sense. Angel Reese put up 13.6 points and 13.1 rebounds as a rookie. Those are elite numbers. Yeah, her relationship with the Sky went south, but that doesn't just erase her talent. If Dallas can get Reese plus the 5th pick, they get an immediate impact player who fits perfectly next to Bueckers, and they still get a lottery talent like Sonia Citro. For Chicago, moving Reese and jumping from 5 to 1 lets them get their own top prospect and start fresh without all the drama. The Minnesota angle is more of a long shot, but it's still possible. If the Lynx are truly sold on Fudd being a better fit than Iriefin, they could offer Dallas a future first-rounder on top of the number 2 pick. Dallas drops one spot, still gets Iriefin, and adds a future first for more flexibility. It could be a win-win. What really makes this interesting is the expansion draft. With new teams coming, existing rosters are going to lose players. Having a bunch of young talent on rookie deals is like gold. Asset accumulation is the name of the game, and Miller is smart enough to be thinking 3 moves ahead. If he can turn one top asset into 2 or 3 quality ones, he's setting his team up for years of success. But here's the thing about Paige Bueckers that changes the entire equation for Dallas. She's so good that they don't have to hit a home run with this pick. They're not desperate like Indiana was. Dallas has their superstar, now they're just adding the pieces around her. That's why Miller can take these calls seriously instead of just being polite. He's not protecting a franchise-altering player. He's seeing if any offer makes his team better than just drafting Fudd would. The next few months will be telling. Chicago makes too much sense. Minnesota could get aggressive. You can't even rule out Washington packaging the 4th pick to move up. What we are watching is the WNBA draft market finally growing up. The Clark and Bueckers drafts taught everyone that generational talents are off limits, but they also taught them that everything else is on the table. So will Dallas actually trade the... My guess is they'll listen to every single offer right up until draft night. If Chicago puts Reese and the 5th pick on the table, that's a tough offer to refuse. But if nobody blows them away, they will gladly draft Azzi Fudd and market the hell out of the UConn reunion. Either way, the fact that we're even having this debate shows how far the league has come. So what do you think Dallas should do? Take Azzi Fudd or trade the pick for a bigger haul? And if you're Chicago, how much is too much to give up to move from 5 to 1? Drop your theories in the comments, make sure you subscribe, and let's see what happens. Because one thing is for sure, this draft is about to be way more exciting than anyone thought.